Good morning, everybody. I saw this headline this morning. It says, Mysterious symbols spanning the globe hint at a lost civilization 38,000 years ago. So, of course, the historian in me had to click on it and read it. And it points to 5 different civilizations in Egypt, Turkey, Cambodia, Peru, and Bolivia. And they said the investigation began with finding a reoccurring giant T symbol, 3 level incidents and step pyramids carved into ancient stones worldwide. Pattern said should not exist across unilateral cultures, which means spanning from culture to culture, suggesting a shared origin rather than an independent development. It's very interesting. I've often had this thought. I was trying to think of something else to say, but I can't at 4:30 in the morning. I've often had this thought that we see pyramids everywhere. That we have them in the United States. We have them. We have found pyramids under the ocean, on the ocean floor. We found them in the civilization of Kush, which is south of Egypt. We have found them all over the world. Various civilizations. How did they get there? Why did most civilizations built them? The American Indians built them. The Indians in South America built them. Why? Why did all these civilizations build them? A lot of the theory revolves around they were trying to get closer to whatever god they were worshiping, and generally they worship some type of sun god. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, and I'll be honest with you, nobody else does either. They'll throw out one theory after another, and that's fine. I mean, it's fun to talk about. I'm not admitted. The history nerd in me loves talking about this stuff. Love talking about lost civilizations and all this kind of stuff, and you can point to different artifacts and symbols and all this kind of stuff and come up with your own hypothesis. And this one goes back to Matthew LaCroix told the Daily Mail the discovery sparked a recent find in Egypt. Links symbols back to 38 to 40,000 years ago. An independent researcher claims he has uncovered paradigm-shifting evidence of a lost civilization. And what happens is you have this archaeologist or historian go in, find this stuff, and then he takes off and runs with it, and everybody else is trying to debunk what he's done. Now, finding that same exact symbol across 5 different civilizations that many years ago is crazy to me. The problem is when we tie it back into the Bible really doesn't give us a time frame past about 6,000 years ago. Because if we go back to the Old Testament, we can track all the way back about 6,000 years. The problem comes in, and it's not a problem, but this is where the rub, whatever adjective, whatever you want to put in there, comes in, is when we go from creation to the flood. What is that time frame? We don't know. Or if it's in the Bible, I've missed it. I'll put it to you that way. Everybody says, well, the earth is only 5,000 years old. Well, we can unequivocally prove that the earth is more than 5,000 years old. It's absolutely older than that. Civilization's only been here for 5,000 years. Well, in our modern vernacular, yeah. But unless these people are lying, and they very well could be. I mean, we have artifacts that we found that are 20,000 years old. By carbon dating, we can go, okay, well, this thing is 20,000 years old. So, are these part of the stuff that was this part of the civilization that existed when God flooded the earth before Noah or during Noah's time? You know, we can easily go back to Moses and go, okay, this is what happened. Here was this, and this. Some of this other stuff we don't really know. We're kind of guessing. We're going, okay, well, if this was about 6,000 years ago, that puts it about 4,000 BC. Well, we can go back to about 5 or 6,000 BC in the earliest civilizations. So there's a wide rift between science and the Bible as far as a timeline concerned, because God's infinite. He's always been, he always will be. Time does not matter to him. The only thing time matters to is humans, because ours is so finite. You know, we get 80 years on this earth. Anything past 80, you're kind of living on borrowed time. I mean, let's just be honest. That's the truth. You hit 100, you live for a century, and you're like, oh yeah. And it says he describes as this earliest source of civilization symbols, architecture, and teachings dating to around 40,000 years old. He urges its preservation as the original blueprint later carried to places such as Gaza and Tehuacán. I think that's how you say it, Tehuacán. And that is in, I don't know. But here, our high-tech stuff. This is what I'm looking at. I'm sorry for the high-tech stuff right there. And this comes from the Daily Mail. So sometimes the Daily Mail gets a little wonky. But I saw something else when I was on here, so maybe God pointed me in this direction this morning. It says, I am a Harvard physicist. I use science and the Bible to find heaven. Okay. So in my investigative brain, we click on it. I am a Harvard scientist. Science was my only God until I read the Bible. Then 3 clues led me to heaven. Now, it doesn't go any further than that, because it wants you to join the site. I find that very difficult to believe. I am in the camp believing that heaven is in another dimension other than what we're in. Scientists said they can prove there's like 20 or 25 different dimensions. I don't remember the exact number. It's in the 20s. Maybe it's 26. Keeps popping into my head. I don't know. And I think a lot of this stuff is based on theory rather than actual evidence of what they can do or what they can prove. But scientists say they can prove it. So probably men smarter than I am. But the problem is anytime we get into that really smart realm with people, we start to go really sideways in our thinking, because then we start thinking we are the smartest people in the room, so to speak. We are the smartest people ever. And that's when you run into I'm playing God, which is part of the problem we have now. We have men who think they are gods. That's why all this stuff happens. That's why God flooded the earth to start with. Not necessarily part of the reason was they were thinking they were gods. The other part of it was they were so decadent. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier, and the question was posed. Mysterious symbol spanning the hint of a lost civilization 38,000 years ago. Why are they talking about this now? Candace Owens this week. Tucker Carlson also discussed fallen angels, giants, Iraq, and the tomb of Gilgamesh. It's amazing to me how these people want to deny the Bible, or they want to proclaim themselves to be religious. I hate that term, but religious, and they constantly talk about God, but none of them rarely, if ever, mention Jesus. But they love that side of the Bible, but they never want to come to the other side of the Bible. And I mean Old Testament, New Testament. Always been fascinating to me that we want to, and don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm a historian, so I'm my history nerds all tingly. Like, oh, evidence of a 38,000 year old civilization. Oh yeah, I want to see that. And I'm going to read more into that. Trust me when I tell you that. I found, I teach a class on ancient Egypt every year. And we talk about all the symbols, and I am not one of those people that fall into the category that the ancient Egyptians 5,000 years ago built those pyramids. I just don't. I cannot wrap my head around that. Maybe they did. I just cannot wrap my head around it. I'm also not sitting here going, oh, the aliens built it. I don't know how they were built, and neither does anybody else. You can come up with theory after theory after theory, prove some of it. Mine always has been, how in the world did you get a 2,000-pound rock? Easy enough to square it out. I'm still, the architecture involved in that, using bronze tools, is still a little iffy to me, but let's say they did do it. How'd they get that 2,000-pound rock on the top of a pyramid of Giza 500 feet in the air? They carry it up there? Possible? I don't know. I don't know how they got it up there. Maybe the aliens did build it. So it's just one of those things that the past is very indicative of the future. This comes from DW.com. I've never been on their website before. But it says Maltbook, a viral site for AI agents explodes into the mainstream. What does a new social media platform created by AI agents to exchange their ideas, workflows, and even their thoughts at the end of the humanity mean for us? Social network for AI agents. A new talk of the town is where humans have no place. It's a site called Maltbook that describes itself as a social network for AI agents. The Reddit-styled site launched in late February by U.S.-based entrepreneur Matt Schultz, or I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his last name. Schultz? I don't know. Is where thousands of AI assistants talk to each other and discuss topics ranging from the typical to the philosophical. Yeah, what could go wrong with that? The site where humans are welcome to observe has sub-channels called submults, where AI assistants share affectionate complaints about their human users, or where features are posted: roast the humans, machine-only comedy night, an assistant shared how to automate an Android. People, I'm telling you. If you don't think the deception is going to come from the people standing beside you, we've already talked about that. And if you don't think AI is going to be involved, you're crazy as a loon. Just saying, it is what it is. All right, let's get on to the things God can't do. We left off at number 14 yesterday. God can't neglect his children. If ye then, being evil, know about how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father, which is heaven, give good gifts to them that ask him? That comes from Matthew 7:11. God can't be put on a time schedule. And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. That comes from Acts 1:7. Now, that is a fantastic one to go back and read when we are talking about our teaching on Revelation. God's not on your time schedule, he's on his. Things happen on an appointed time, not when you want them to happen or just at a whim. If we're talking about the pre-tribulation rapture, it just doesn't happen whenever you want it to happen, as you want it to happen, when you want it to happen. God's on his own time frame. Things have to work a certain way, and he's going to put people into certain positions to bring about what he wants to happen. Good and bad. He uses good people, he uses bad people, whatever. However, I'll break that down into the smallest terms I possibly can. But our daily devotional says, today, as a little child, for February 6th. Matthew tells us Christ called a little child to him and took the younger into his arms. The Lord wanted to give his disciples a profound, illustrated sermon. He told them, assuredly, I say to you, unless you are converted and become a little child, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself, there's that word again, humble. You're not going to get into heaven being proud and haughty. Humbles himself as the little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever receives a little one, childlike, this in my name receives me. That comes from Matthew 18:3-5. In these verses, Jesus lays out the kind of relationship he desires with his people. He is saying, look at this child. Here is my future church. The young one represents every new believer who is going to come to me in childlike faith from one nation, race, and tribe. From every nation, race, and tribe. I tell you, my church should relate to me as the child does. Next, Jesus calls for his disciples to humble themselves, to command them, become as little children. He was saying, I am building my church upon you. If you want any part of it, you must become as humble as this little child in my arms. I believe that by doing this, Jesus is asking those who would serve him for two simple things: all self-dependency and uncomplicated devotion. He told his disciples very directly, whoever causes one of these little ones, whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck, and he were drowned in the depths of the sea. That comes from Matthew 18:6. Jesus was expressing his wrath toward those who teach the cross is not sufficient to save. He was talking to the very foundation stones of his church, his own disciples, warning them not to be offended by the cross, that they had to accept the fact that he alone was full payment for our sins. The same is true today. Let us come to him like a child, faith with uncomplicated belief, trusting in his work for us. That that brings us back to the law. I just finished up the book of Romans. Paul taught in there constantly about people going back to the law. Paul dedicated 3 or 4 books in the New Testament to not going back to the law. He even chastised Peter about going back to the law, because Peter would float back and forth. When he was with the Jews, he wouldn't eat pork, he wouldn't do this, and when he was with the Gentiles, he'd have a pork sandwich, a pork chop sandwich, so to speak. So he was like, look, you're the one causing dissent in the church. You're bouncing from one side to the next side. Why is the cross not sufficient for salvation? And that's what he was telling us. Why is it not sufficient for salvation? People want to complicate it and add something to it. Jesus said you didn't need to add anything to it. I am the reason. I am the way, the truth, and the light. Or life. You don't need anything else. But in our tiny little brain, we do, and we don't. I'm going to jump off of here. I'll end it with that. Y'all have a great day. If you want to read more about that article, it's on the Daily Mail. I think it's a fascinating article to read, but that's just the history nerd in me. Y'all keep your head on the swivel. Y'all pray, prep, and train something today. May God guide your steps.